Hello, Heidi.
Hi, I'm back. I'm here on your show this time.
Makes a change, doesn't it?
Yes, I'm your little American sister now.
Yes. Oh, that's lovely. It's Heidi
I like
lovely.
it. Yes,
So,
thank
are
you so much.
are you well?
Yes, I do have some allergies, just so people know. If you hear me pause or whatever from time to time, they're trying to kill us spraying out here. No, I don't know. I'm kidding.
Do you get quite a lot of that there as well then?
Oh yes. I live by an Air Force base. So
Oh,
it is just completely inundated here. And then let alone they let off a sonic boom maybe a week ago, and it was the loudest ever heard around this area for a long time. We've been tested on in Utah. We've got downwinders from like past experiments out in the desert. We've got all kinds of things. And within 30-mile radius of me, we have the NSA big headquarters where they keep all your information stored from phones, computers, whatnot. We have the CIA, the FBI, the IRS, and an Air Force base. So
all connected by tunnels.
yes, sir. You know it. You know it. And I do bring a whole presentation on that for a different time, but we can talk about it as well. These tunnels are well established and documented. Of course, they say, oh, those are all closed off now, you silly people. Blah, blah,
Mm,
blah.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course they
sure.
are. I was talking
Sure,
to
sure,
someone
sure.
yesterday who says that he believes that the elite are still using vacuum tunnels and they're able to travel underground. That's why we never see them in traffic jams. That's why we never,
That's right.
see one broken down on the side of the road or drive past us in a Ferrari or a Bentley or whatever.
Well, you do know, I don't know if you know this, but they admit as much in Las Vegas. They have admitted that the Boring Company, owned by Elon Musk, dug a bunch of holes underneath the traffic areas for Teslas only. And they were just kind of hiding it under this guise that this is for the traffic. And look at you get this extra perk if you have a Tesla. And I'm like, my ass. They are
Yeah.
looking for something, and that is the funniest cover story I think I've ever heard. But
Mm.
yes, you know, Elon Musk's number one money man is a Mormon. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, his name is Jared Burchall. Jared Burchall does not have the qualifications to be in that position, much like our friend Howard Hughes. And I think it's very interesting indeed when we look at, the fact that Elon's dad has been on multiple shows saying that Netanyahu was very close with him and that they called him uncle.
Mm.
Um, Elon's ties are interesting, but yes, nevertheless, right back to the Mormon church, Jared Burchell.
See,
Yes.
he is not who people think. There's so many people idolize Elon Musk, and well, first of all, he isn't the brains behind anything. He just hires people that
Oh,
are very intelligent. He didn't form Tesla. He worked there, and if anybody's ever seen him on any of the talk shows like Joe Rogan, this isn't somebody who comes across as being the next Stephen Hawkins, not by a long way. And he's also changed. He doesn't look like he's the same person. There's
I
something very
mean,
odd going on there.
we're talking about a lot of drugs, ketamine, and possible infiltration of imposter DNA. You and I both are of the park where things are not what they seem. And do I think that they have extras of people, or if they want to get less creative robots, sure, great. But like, let's be honest, they've been working on stuff like this for how long now? And
Mm,
we don't think they can create a human being. I do. I do.
mm, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
You've got a bit of cabbage information to share with us,
I
haven't you?
do. I wanted to share with you multiple things. Of course, I know you already know so much of it, but then it can lead us off into discussion, which is the best place to be. We always have so much fun with our chats. And so I love that. And I've been lucky to meet you because it's been just wonderful fun. So I love
Oh,
it.
thank you. Oh, that's really
Of
kind of you to
course.
say. Well, I'm honored to have met you too, Heidi.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we don't always get to get somebody that we can speak with where we don't sound batshit crazy, right?
I had that conversation with someone about an hour ago. They said to me, "What I'm about to tell you, you'll think I am completely insane." And they told me what they thought the pandemic was really about. And
Oh, do
I said,
tell.
I don't think you've read my book. And she said, "No, I
Yeah.
haven't." said, well, read it, because she's got it. I said, well, read this particular chapter, and then message me, because
Oh, wow.
almost word for word, almost verbatim, her thoughts are exactly the same as mine. And she actually then put it
Really?
on Facebook. She then put it on anywhere. She then comment on it or post about her thoughts. And I said to her, I wrote your thoughts in my book.
Ah, that probably scared her, right? She probably was
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, what is
yeah.
happening?
But
Because I
she's off.
know so many of us feel like that, like, oh, this is just mine and I'm the only
Mm,
one and blah, blah, blah. But honestly, so many of us are going down this rabbit trail, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
I
I think it
think.
was the pandemic for a lot of people. I think a combination of them smelling a rat, thinking that something isn't quite right, and that
Yes.
combined with being stuck indoors for 9 months.
Oh.
A lot of people, I was furloughed, so I couldn't do my job. I was a tattooist. I couldn't go to work, but it was a limited company, so I was furloughed. I was paid to stay at home. But I had
Oh.
an awful 9 months of sitting around. And even though I did go out here and there was nobody around. A lot of people refused to do what I was doing, and they stayed indoors, went out for a walk for an hour. But
Mm-hmm.
I just spent the majority of the time I had at home, and you think, 2/3 of a year I was on BitChute, literally till 4 or 5
Ah.
o'clock in the morning, just BitChute, constantly absorbing information. And they've removed it now. They've banned it here in
Oh,
Britain. Yeah,
really?
yeah, we're not allowed BitChute anymore. You have to go, you'd have to get a VPN.
How rude. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Like, okay, we're at that part of the world where we get to ban information,
yeah,
right? This is a free world country. And especially Great Britain, like they're right behind the US as far as freedom, I think for most people as far as their natural view, right? Like they're
yeah,
but no, I have a very good friend there. She Debbie Elliott, she also had her channel removed from YouTube. She wasn't even talking about anything weird, she was talking about Steiner and just
right.
reading books. And
Mm,
then she also got removed from it wasn't BitChute, it was something else, but one of those, and they took that down as well. And I thought,
mm,
what on earth is happening here? This
mm.
is not normal.
No,
I mean,
it's
they're
not.
really trying to stop it.
Mm, yeah, they are.
Ugh, it's just wild. I don't know. I'm like you. I woke up during the pandemic. I had always had a lot of weird thoughts of my own. I'll say weird, but also being a Mormon, for those that don't know me, I guess I should tell people I am Heidi Luv, the Unfiltered Rise podcast, and I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. And that's how me and Guy met. If you haven't seen his shows on mine, you should go check him out. He's awesome. And people love you on my show. So just
Thank you.
FYI. And I love your work because so often we do find ourselves feeling crazy. And as an ex Mormon, I knew some stories like the one we spoke about before we went live about Jesus and kids and different stuff, right? I knew this
Yeah.
stuff not because of a popular movie, I knew it because of Mormons.
Mm,
So somewhere in there, some magical orders have kept different stories, which you yourself know.
yeah. So is that a common thought then, or belief in the Mormon Church, that Jesus had children?
Well, this is the story. So they will lie to you. And most new mainstream Mormons will say, she's a liar. I've never heard this before. This must be some weird branch of Mormonism because there are many. Okay. And they'll say this is FLDS, which means fundamentalist LDS. And those are
Mm,
the people. I don't know if you've seen the ones that look like they're Amish. Have you seen these
yeah,
Mormons? Okay.
yeah,
So those are fundamentalists, and there's many fundamentalist branches as well. And most of the time, when people speak of FLDS, they're speaking of Warren Jeffs. And I actually have
right,
a
okay,
strange connection with him. My sister married his nephew. They're
right,
now divorced. Yeah. But that is not the only offshoot. And the funny thing is, there are many offshoots. And one of them that doesn't get spoken about is the Kingstons. And the Kingston, like Kingston,
yes,
And they are one of the main branches that are active. They're very wealthy and they blend in with mainstream. They do not look like Little House on the Prairie, but they would not wear a dress like me. They wouldn't show all this skin. They would wear down to their wrists and, you know, whatnot, be more modest necklines, but they would wear normal, quote unquote, normal clothes.
Yeah.
They work normal jobs. They blend in very well. But the thing about the Kingstons is they continue this narrative of the story I'm going to tell you, and they interbreed and intermarry very closely, including aunts and sisters and all
Oh,
kinds of
wow.
messes.
Do
Yes,
they
to keep
have
their
problems?
bloodline pure.
Do
Oh,
they have problems with
bananas.
mutations, deformities?
So
Oh, well.
many, so many. And this is supposed to be against the law in Utah because there was so much intermarrying and so much closely related people with polygamy that we had a ton of problems here in the state of Utah for a while. Like my cousins, some of my cousins far down, like my grandma's cousins, they had some handicapped children and they married each other not even knowing they were closely related because
Right.
there was so much interbreeding, right?
Mm.
And so this became a huge problem in Utah, but per this particular story, the reason why the Kingstons still do this sort of thing is because they do believe they have the divine right to rule, because they believe that Jesus was a polygamist, the first polygamist, and that is a polygamy sect. They have many wives because Jesus had three. Funny thing is, you cannot go to the top heaven, celestial kingdom, unless you have three wives,
Hmm.
according to original Mormonism. Original.
Now,
So,
where on
yes,
earth, what, where does that line of thinking come from?
the
You know,
Templars.
it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes.
You have to have three wives to
Yes,
get
or you
in.
can't go to the top. And they can take your wives away, PS. They also do not get prosecuted here like they should, simply because they are very wealthy.
Right.
They
And is that
donate often.
so the
To
church
the
itself is wealthy?
Well, this so the church will say they have nothing to do with us because they're a crazy section and we don't have anything to do with them because they're crazy, clearly. Well, okay, but here's the thing. Where did their beliefs start? With the actual start, the real theology of the LDS church has been desecrated. And they have these books that you can go buy. If you go into a bookstore here in Utah, you can say, I want to see the FLDS books on these teachings, and they'll sell them to you. But these are the books that are the original. And the original Book of Mormon has been edited thousands, like at least 1,000
Mm.
times. So nothing in there is anymore even close. Like even their temple ceremonies, you know, you used to be a Mason. We've talked before. Originally, when my great grandma went through the temple, she said she was naked in a bathtub and they poured oil all over her. Okay.
Hmm.
And I said this to somebody that was a Mason, and they said, as it should be. And I thought, oh, okay, because I didn't know. See, I was new in that game. And so now I do know. And this is how watered down it has gotten. Now you wear a baptism suit with a zipper in the front, and they barely touch your skin, like barely, like on your
Right.
belly, but above your belly button, like little tiny places that are
Mm.
appropriate, right? Very appropriate. And they only have it done by like males with males, females with females. So
Right.
it's changed quite a lot. But these Kingstons hold on to this story and they got so rich, I believe, through gas stations. And they oftentimes have been linked with donating money to people like Romney. I don't know if you know who that is, but
No,
he's
no,
very
who's wrong?
prominent. So he was very prominent. He's prominent here in Utah. He's kind of backed off a bit, but he actually was going to run for president of the United States.
Oh,
So
wow.
he's in government. Yes, Mitt Romney. So when we are talking about these people, they're not prosecuted because they have big pockets, and they also do not have birth defects anymore because they hire geneticists to make sure who breeds with who. Very
Right.
ubermensch of them, yay.
Right. Crikey.
Yes.
Mind you,
Mm.
they've got an incredible, one of the biggest databases in the world, haven't they, of genealogy?
Oh, yeah. Well, The genealogy part is just wild. And so I'm just going to bounce back and forth on pictures here because the genealogy part for Mormons is so interesting that we have to know that, and I'm sure photo in here, the big vault that they blew the side of the mountain out of.
Yes.
And it is just fantastic, but there's a way that they came about that, and it's very, very, very interesting. The way that they came about all of their information for that vault was through the Nazis. And so when we are talking about this kind of stuff, it's so interesting where the Mormons always fall in. I put that in a different slideshow, so let me open that
That's
up.
a fantastic image.
Thank you. I'll reopen that one too. But this is such a great showing of, okay, so, and I think I have Jared Burch on here too, just FYI for people. Oh, I do. Look how fantastic. Ta-da! Elon Musk's money man, Mammon guy. Mr.
Right.
Mammon himself. Well, and I joke about that, but I'm serious because if you see this, this is the Melchizedek priesthood. This is the top priesthood you can get as a Mormon. Well, look at how darn close it is here. Looky, looky here. They're not practicing money magic. What? Okay, so that is Jared. But the next slide that we have is the Granite Genealogical Vaults. And this was created to house their just genealogy records. Look at the doors. Yeah. Look at these doors. They are armed with armed guards with semi-automatic weapons. Okay. I don't know that you need that for a bunch of paper. Like, what is happening in here? Also, there's razor wire. There's only one way in and one way out. This is an early picture of them blowing through the mountain for this. What do the Mormons have that we do not know? Look at this in and out. There is no way to escape if you get, this is a gigantic mountain. Okay. This is huge. And when we see this and this tiny, narrow, one little road to get there, but then there's also gates and razor wire that you can't see all above the cliffs. So some people have said, now this is speculation because I don't know these people, that the razor wire is facing to keep something in.
Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
Me either.
So they've got something possibly, they've possibly got something in there.
It's very interesting. I will tell you, it is closed to the public. You cannot go in there. This is one tiny hallway of, and I know you featured this in your book. This is one tiny hallway of the little drawers that I think are probably possibly PKUs, you know. Also reminds me a lot, and we can talk about this too, of the Babylonian Nephilim old world hives. Have you seen these hive caves, these birthing caves that Yep. It reminds me oddly of that. I know that's not big enough for that, but just the design, you know. And so they definitely knew some things, I think, and know some things at the top level. What they've done is they've obfuscated so greatly by saying, well, that's crazy, or those people are crazy, or these people are crazy, right? Whatever. And then it just goes away. But when we see things like this is one of the presidents of the church, prophet, seer, and revelator, Thomas Es Monson. He is now passed, and this is Baby Bush. What they're doing there is not Masonic. I do not.
No, it's not.
I do not think that people realize that. They think, oh, it's just a Mason handshake. And I'm like, they are skull and bones brothers, my friend.
Yeah. It's not Masonic.
So yeah, you can at least verify that. So that's fun. And this, notice his grip on that key. Looky. So I find it fascinating that in 2018, this is the new prophet, seer, and revelator of the church. He also is the one that busted out the hat out of cold storage and said, yep, we channeled the whole book. That was fun because nobody ever knew that before, right? It was like a lie. Like, don't believe that if you ever hear that. That's crazy. But Russell M. Nelson went to the Vatican and proposed to build a temple there. It was very hush hush. he has his hands on the keys to the kingdom, and he built his temple to like right down the street from the Vatican. Never been allowed before, never been sanctioned ever by any pope before. And now they have, along with their purchase of Westminster Abbey. So fantastic. I have no idea what is going on there. Like, it is just wild. Like, and you know, when we see these things, we have to say there is a bigger meaning at play. I also snapped this. You know, your phone
Yes, I heard
knows.
about this. Yeah.
I caught it.
Mm.
I happened to open my phone one day, and I was like, "Oh, this looks interesting." Went to it, snapped it to come back to later. Later, it was gone. So the importance of this Waricki business is that she was over 23andMe. The day that she resigned was the day that Diddy got arrested.
Mm.
Look it up. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
interesting. So when everybody resigned, you know, I just found it an interesting coincidence that that would happen at the same exact time frame. And just to know a little about Anne Waricki, her sister owned, and well, not owned, she was over YouTube, and she had a sudden death right before this, like in August. I think this is so September and August or so. And then right before that, in the February before that, her son also had a suicide. So
Christ,
yeah,
right. Okay.
super interesting when we have a
Yeah.
trail.
Yeah.
You'll
So it
have to
looks
beep
like
that.
they,
Sorry.
yeah,
Didn't mean to say that
they
word.
were got at.
Yes. And so when we look at all of these things and we understand, the church will definitely say we didn't have anything to do with that. We aren't over 23andMe. Sure. Perfect. Great. But everything that they have is from them in genealogy, and it bleeds into all of these other genealogical places. And
Mm.
this is an example of something you would see in the Mormon church. This is for work for the dead. And what we do is we get our relatives. That's not my relative. And I don't know if I can say this is the chancellor's paperwork. So
Yeah.
the chancellor's paperwork was done. They sealed him, baptized him, and endowed him. And actually, you know, I don't think he was legally married, was he?
No,
Ever.
no,
So
he wasn't.
they did do an endowment for him, which,
Mm.
you know, they did his rights but not sealed. So they just sealed him to his parents instead. And I just find it fascinating that they would make sure this got done. They also made sure a whole bunch of other people got done, aka all of the victims of this situation, and Anne Frank herself. Which then the Jewish church got mad and said, can you cut it out now? And they were like, oops, sorry. And they did for a minute, but then they went right back at it. So
Okay.
yeah, this is interesting because why do they have all of these records? Why do they know all of this business, right? This is
Mm.
part of what was so important for me when I started looking into everything, and actually what led me down such a huge rabbit hole of all of this is, yes, why? Why do they have all of this stuff? Why is it computerized? Where is it coming from? And what happened there? Right?
Yeah.
We have to ask these questions, because why does the Mormon church seem to have such an in with these things? Right?
Mm.
It's strange because everybody's like at this giant poker table, and they're all kind of putting their cards on the table, so to speak. I think they have been as of recently. And so when they do this, you have to know that the Mormon church has been quoted, and this is a true quote from this book here, The Keystone of Mormonism, but also from a prophet, seer, and revelator of the church speaking. And you can kind of see the Masonic Arch here.
Sure.
um they talk about that they have the true keys of masonry, and I am saying that they postulate that they have found the missing things of masonry. So
Mm. Hmm.
I don't know why they think that, because I'm
Yeah.
not that deep in, but I would love to know. But they do postulate this often, and here's the thing: they must have something very good for the Vatican to work with them, for
Mm.
Westminster Abbey to be sold to them, for these things that are happening. It is so interesting. when we look at the machine's wheels, right? Like, why are they able to do this when they were kind of kooky, weirdo Scientology people up until very
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
until the 50s, you know? So it changed, and it changed. I speculate with Howard Hughes. And I'll tell you why. But I did want to mention before I go forward, Charles Loring Brace. I hit you up about him and about what Masonic order or where the proof was with him. Well, I didn't find that, but what I did find, I wanted to share
Oh,
with you.
I'm pretty sure it was Mind Unveiled who did a YouTube video on him. But I found
About that.
out that he was member of the Odd Fellows. I mean, that's out there for
Yes.
anybody to find. But also, if you dig a bit deeper, he was known to be well, I don't know what the word is, but prolific racist. He despised anybody that wasn't Caucasian and didn't have the same religious beliefs as himself. He was a horrific
Absolutely.
person, really.
And he refused any child other than white children to ride the orphan train,
Yes,
FYI.
yes.
But also, guess what? He is so close to our friend up here. Very interesting. He was a spy. And this is out there for people to Google.
Is that
He
John
was,
Dee?
yeah, John Dee, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about Charles Loring Brace.
Yeah,
He
sorry.
was
Just when you
a
point to the book, I
spy.
can't see
Yes,
for because
just, oh,
pictures are a bit
sorry.
small.
Yes, John Dee. And so, interesting enough, he was a spy and he was a member of a secret society, which was never named specifically. You've obviously found it, probably with the Oddfellows, is my guess.
Mm,
But why would they not name it?
yeah.
That's so weird. So strange. But yeah, he's a spy. Like, why are we trusting? Oh, somebody sent me a message. He's a pariah.
Hmm.
I think I sent it to you because I laughed and we both had a good chuckle about this racist pariah. But yeah, whatever. Right? It's something else. But yeah, whatever. So I think that with some of these different scandals that we've seen over the years, with some
Mhm.
of these different, you know, explosions onto the internet of things like clonade,
Yeah. I've done a lot of digging
realism,
into them. Yeah. Oh,
right?
there he is. You know
Oh,
David
he
Icke?
is.
Well,
Yes, yes.
David Icke, his story is very similar, it's
Oh, yeah.
just Claude beat him to it by probably 20 years. But you've got two. I mean, he was a racing car driver, wasn't he? Then he was a sports commentator and journalist, and then he has a vision, or he's approached and sees the light and has a premonition and so on. Well, David Icke's the same. He's a footballer, then becomes a commentator and journalist, and then stumbles across a book, sees the light, has a vision, and then sort of almost acts as a prophet. I've got. I think that David Icke. I think he's
I think
very
he's in the
brave.
club,
I,
or
I,
you think
I,
he's
I don't know. I don't know because he won't touch Tartaria, and I've been on his son's channel talking to them about it, and they read my
or
book.
maybe he's just scared. Maybe he's just freaked
Maybe,
out.
but some of
Who
the stuff that
knows?
he talks about, you'd have thought he'd have been bumped off by now. So, yeah, my guess is that that is my guess that he has been got at, and I think anybody once they get to a certain following, a certain level, has been. Now these two are very strange, aren't they? Bridget, and Claude.
Oh, yes.
Mm,
Well, and these declassified documents about Charles Manson, very
mhm.
interesting when we get into the process church with all of this stuff. And we hear this time and time and time and time and time and time again. Look, from the beginning of time, look, Muhammad, Joseph, realism, all these things, Parsons, Crowley, all of these people, look, every single one of them has a vision, sees a something, God, whatever they want it to be. Like Crowley didn't see God because he didn't really like God. So he saw something else. He saw AWAS. But every time we talk about these characters, they write a book and it becomes
Mm.
a freaking religion
Yes,
every single
yes,
time. And I'm
yeah.
like, look, people, read some Steiner and figure out you're not talking to the angels.
Mm.
They're lower. They're lower level. I'm sorry. I don't believe high level angelic beings that are with God would do anything a human being said, even if they were summoned with Solomonic magic, because God is the only one that can control those top angels. But there's a lot of things that will come and they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. Like John Dee's story is all about that. Like literally. I mean, what does he say about it? They're liars. And then they
Yeah.
get you to swap wives or have polygamy. Usually that's the two, or child abuse. And those are the things we see that go forward with their power empowerment. Let's be real. They're charging it,
Mm,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
But
Totally agree. And
yeah,
he's John Dee's sidekick spent a lot of time trying to create a homunculus.
right. And maybe, just maybe, all this crazy stuff, which this isn't 60 minutes. Like I looked this clip up. This is a real clip still available on YouTube. This was only aired in Australia. And I found that very interesting
Mm,
because I'm like, wait a minute, this got real publicity back in the day. And of course, they named the first baby Eve.
yes.
So, I mean, they're
Yes.
telling us right in our faces, right? They're like really rubbing our nose in it, to be quite honest. And this is years ago. And then what was weird about this one is, Bridget came out and she talked about this years before
Yeah.
this happened again. And then it happened again in the 2000s. So it was like in the 90s sometime. And then, like, I think around 2006 or four, I have it written down, but they come out again and pretend like this is all new again, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, looky, blah, blah, blah. We made a baby and it's Eve. And I'm like, wait a minute. You already did that. What are you talking about? Right? What do you mean you made an Eve? We know she's supposedly in the Middle East somewhere. So, it's weird to me that it just kind of they pretended like, okay, reset, do it again. There wasn't
Yeah.
enough, information about it. And when you talk about, John Dee's sidekick, and then you think about this, like people will say, okay, this is crazy. Okay,
Mm,
cool. It's crazy. But we've got all these people that don't make babies normally. Okay, we've got nuns and priests. And who better than the people carrying, well, at least a portion of the mysteries with them, and people that are extremely, MK Ultra, I would dare say, because they do what they're told most of the time, or they're
yes.
bosses, or they're bosses, right? One of the two.
Yeah.
They're leading or they're the followers. So one of the two. And what if, I mean, you've got how many uteruses like here when we're talking about
Mm,
convents?
mm.
How much guy stuff? Like you don't need a whole lot to make a whole world,
No, you
really,
don't.
with, that's just easy. So then we've got all this stuff, about, and it's coming up right now. We just spoke about this, that they're going to dig up Tuam and get all of these babies out, and they're digging them up as we speak. This came out 5 days ago to start identifying nearly 800 infants in Tuam. So this has been going on for a long time, but I'm just saying this. Listen, there's only so many unwed mothers. Like, let's get
Yes.
real. You can only have one baby a year. Maybe, I mean, maybe if you got twins, okay. But back
Yeah.
then, come on, like, how often is that happening? Even triplets, okay, fine. That's a rare occasion,
Mm,
even nowadays. But then we've got all these hundreds, and I bet there's way more than that. I mean, so much more.
yeah.
And this mass graves of these babies. And then what we know is, right, there's all these people trying to figure this stuff
Yes,
out.
that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Right. Benjamin
Mm,
Franklin's house.
mm,
Yeah, okay, you got all these pieces of bones and weird stuff. And they say there were often little, right? They
yeah.
talk about this.
Mm,
And then we talk about what in the earth used to be wrong all the time with kids, right? So we've got these pickled punks, and these
mm,
pickled punks are so. This is from a real museum. This is from a museum in the Netherlands. And so we've got all this stuff where we step back and go, well, how crazy was it? Because
yeah.
look, some of these kids don't look right. Okay. That
No,
one
they
doesn't
don't.
look terrible, but this gets a situation
Yeah.
here. And they'll just say, oh, they were bloated. this doesn't even look like a baby, man. This looks
No, it
like
doesn't.
an old man.
It does look like an old man. Yeah. And what about the
Like
one in the middle on the left-hand side of that one? So if you go
this.
down, the one in the middle, what's going on with that?
Oh,
It looks like there's something on his forehead.
yeah, they have all these weird deformities. And
Mm.
this is an awesome. So just for people that want to check on my
Oh, crikey.
information, because they will. This all came from the largest collection, which is at the Kunstkamera Museum. This is where this is from. Okay. And it was Peter the Great's collection. Now, I want people to use their minds. We just talked about 800 babies in Ireland, which Ireland isn't even that big. Okay. But let's just in one place. We're not even talking about all the places. One little place in Ireland, there's 800. Now, do you know how many pickled punks that some of the earlier collectors had? I'm going to
No,
blow your mind if not. This
go
is
for it.
fantastic. Okay, so I want you to guess just one guess of okay, Ulisse Aldrovandi. That should ring a bell. That's a elite name that people don't realize is elite because it's not up front, right? It's the behind. It's the hidden. So he had a collection and it was one of the biggest. So take a stab at how many he had.
God, I don't know what I don't know what I think. I don't know. I don't know. 200, couple hundred.
18,000.
Oh my God. I mean,
And let
obviously,
me tell you, he wasn't the biggest collector.
who was? Do you know who was?
That was Peter the Great.
It
Peter
was
the
Peter
Great.
the Great.
And so if he had 18,000 and they only wanted the ones that were super messed up, which is why all these kids look really weird. Okay.
Mm,
They want the more deformed, the more weird, the more whatever, then they were happier, right? Like look at this
mm,
one. It almost looks like it has two faces. Look at this.
yeah, yeah,
And I know people will say, well, that's decomposition, or maybe when they took them out and blah, blah. And I'm not being insensitive, people. Look, this is science. This is something that happened. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just showing that this really is real. Okay.
mm,
Because I know how it is and they're humans. And so people get very upset. But we have to show the proof that this is real because honestly, people do not believe us. And this is in a real museum to this day. This is real. And so when we're talking about this, the people that actually loved to collect them were royals often. And
yes, yes,
they did this. This was like
mm,
normal to them, right? This
yeah,
is weird. But what if they weren't just collecting them? Who works for the royals, man? The magicians. Every single time they work
yes,
for the royals.
yeah.
So when we're speaking about this stuff, what if, and I just postulate, what if the homunculus story isn't as crazy as it seems?
So
What if
these are
they
all being
succeeded?
failed experiments, which
And
is what
that's what
I think
I
they are.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
they're failed
think so.
experiments. Yeah.
We saw such severe birth defects back in the day. And here's the thing, you guys, people will say that's because of poor nutrition. Look, we eat worse today than
Yes,
ever
absolutely.
before.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't eat real food.
No.
They've taken it away from us, okay? Real food doesn't exist and even if you grow it your very own self and you live on a farm or whatever, here's the problem. They spray the skies and
Yes,
they
they
spray
do.
the
Yeah.
soil and they
Yeah.
have it's impossible. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try because we all should. But at the end of the day, we know that they have taken power over our food. And that is so important because we know that that's a very, powerful tool, right? That's
Yeah.
powerful to control food
Yeah.
because people want to live. They really do. And, when we look at this kind of stuff, then we see this influx of the kids coming and child ordering and mail sending and just weird stuff that you're like that's fake, right? Like
Yeah.
that can't be true. What's going on here, right? That sign
Oh,
says for sale and these are
yeah.
little babies. Now, I'm not saying that they're not humans, but hey, a little strange that we would just not care about these kids. And the way I know you've talked about Feo show, like the way she threw the babies around on the stage in this movie,
Yeah.
and they just didn't give a shit. Like, I mean, really, they didn't. They they just threw these kids around like they could get another one tomorrow, and maybe there's something to that,
Yeah, I often sort of when I look at Guy Blanche, I look at her work, and sometimes I get the feeling that they'd not seen a baby before or handled one.
that
It's got
this
that
is something new to
feel
them,
to
right?
it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and that they know that they can just get plenty. There's plenty more where that came from.
Yeah, well,
Um,
because look at this freaking parcel post newspaper clipping. It
yeah,
says, but look at how they say, what does it say? Parcel post conditions, a live baby. What the hell is happening here?
yeah,
I
yeah. That
mean,
yeah, and it wasn't that unusual, was it?
no, this was like the norm. I mean, you talk about, these people too. Look at how different the people look than the
Mm,
baby, right?
mm,
These babies have like larger heads, bigger, fuller faces for the most part. This one's a not as much. This one looks like it might have some issues. Um,
yes,
but but this one here is your typical what we would call in our work cabbage babies, very
yes,
chubby. They're pictured as just like these really big babies, right? Look at how big this baby is
yeah,
in this little machine. This is my favorite postcard of this.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Mine too.
because it's telling you every like
Oh, you just pointed to
really
the Masonic symbol, bit of Masonic
yes,
symbology there
right.
with the
And
cursor.
then the
Yeah,
red scarlet whore of Babylon,
yeah,
the mother of
yeah.
all, abominations. Well, where did they send them all, huh? Like,
Mm,
what time is the clock at? Like, all of these things are so important when you look at like the integral pieces. And then up here, like, what are the ingredients that they're adding? Like, for
yeah,
what is a
rose seeds
boy?
and cabbage. Yeah,
Yeah, one's a boy, one's a girl. You just
yeah,
turn on the rose for the girl and the cabbage for the boy. But look at they're all kind of similar looking, right? Like
yeah,
they look very strange. And then you think about these things, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, of course, but you talk about like the genealogy thing that happened with the chancellor. Okay.
yeah,
And you're wondering, like, well, why did he hate these people so much, or what was really happening with that, right? Like, is this really what they say that it is? Is this the thing?
yeah.
And I'm not saying what he did was good. Look, people don't come at me. I'm
We
just
don't
saying
know if he did
maybe.
it, do we? I mean, we don't really know what happened, and we know that I'm pretty sure that it was these gas chambers or the concentration camps were they built by the Russians, funded by some American?
Well, I will tell you, I did a whole podcast on the chancellor's connections with the LDS people. Speaking of funding, they were funded by Alan Dulles for a big part, through his law
That's
firm.
it. Yes, right.
Mhm. And so he did this. And also, P.S. people, another huge fan who lived where you are. Well, I don't know about your area, but where you're from was John F. Kennedy's daddy. A lot
Right.
of people skip on Joe, but Joe was over there as, the representative for America while John F. Kennedy was young. And the
Mm,
reason why Joe Kennedy Sr. could never be a president of the United States, do you know why that is?
no.
Well, that is because he was a Nazi sympathizer.
Oh wow, right. Okay, like our
Uh
royal
huh.
family, right.
Uh huh. Yep. And when we're talking about all of these things, we wonder like why the heck do Mormons even matter in all of this stuff, or how do they tie together? Well, we've got this machine, this great
Mm,
machine from that time period. And you have to know that the chancellor, if he did what they say he did, and I think he was looking for something else. I don't think it was about what they said. He was
no, I
measuring
don't think
eye teeth. He was measuring people's canines. Why would he do that? Why would he do that? Because he was creating a super race, but it was not what they said it was, right? And I think he may have succeeded in a large part with a lot of things. but the Mormons surely helped. And this machine here, and I cannot say that name, but this is the IBM machine.
Yeah.
And this is the real machine where they would input the data of your genealogy into this machine. And this is the card. And it shows exactly this is real. This is from, declassified CIA docs. So all of these punch card systems ended up with the CIA. All right. So what happened to them after that, right? Like where did they go? What happened with it? Well, this lady becomes super important at that time. And also you have to know, like, she is obfuscated through them saying she wasn't a part of IBM. She was on the committee. Oh, okay. Well,
Uh,
guess who she is?
yeah, I know who you're talking about now.
Bill
Microsoft's
Gates'
mum.
mom.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Mm.
this is a picture of him and mom at an IBM function. Like, she's at work showing like what she did, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And this is Billy Boy Gates himself. And they often ignore her, which makes the most sense, right? They do this with
Mm.
Elon's mom. Elon's mom's bananas. Go
Oh
check her
yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, she's very strange looking as well.
Well, and here's the thing, you've done a lot of research, who is it that the elites or the mystery school type people, who runs that situation most of the time? Whose progeny does that go through, the father or the mother?
Mm.
Often the mother.
Yeah, the
Often this
mother.
is a
Mm.
mother situation. So these are all declassified documents supporting what I'm going to tell you, what happened to these cards. And these cards ended up, like I said, with the CIA, and then they ended up with the Mormons. And the reason why they ended up with the Mormons, I have this funny little picture of Howard Hughes with the Nixon as a puppet, because
Mm.
that is quite true. But they ended up getting all of this data processing type stuff and putting it into early computers through a man named William Gay. And William Gay worked for, or I would like to actually say, was the face of the companies after Mayhew for the Mormon Mafia. He was the top of it, and he was much like our friend Jared Burchall. He was not worthy of his position at all. He was an errand boy, actually. He did not have any kind of knowledge about business or any of that stuff, but yet here he is running one of the most powerful men in the world's companies via keeping him drugged and put away. That's just
Mm.
the truth.
Mm.
And there's a lot of proof. And to this day, that man in particular, and I'll show you a photo of him, he's passed now. He was the one that put in all of this genealogical information through a sister company, a shell company of Howard Hughes's. And he named it Hughes Dynamics. And actually, Howard Hughes got pissed about it because he still had enough wherewithal at this point to say something. And he
Mm.
did. And so he said, "What are you doing?" And he wanted to put all these christening records and different records that they got from the chancellor's people, from the CIA, into a database so that they could like make it all computerized. And when
Yeah.
Howard Hughes found out about this, he shut it down. But little did he know he wouldn't be around all that much longer for him to shut anything of Gay's down.
Mm.
And Gay became the power of this whole situation. When everything happens and Howard Hughes dies, I mean, he who has the king, A, gets the keys, and B, makes the rules.
Mm.
And I think Howard Hughes had a whole lot of information when we get into the Two Eye Stone and Casey and a whole bunch of weird stuff. But what I'm telling you is, with the projects that Hughes was involved in, like Project Isorion, do you know about this project that
No,
he
I
was
don't
involved
know. No, please
in?
share.
So, yeah, of course, Howard Hughes. So, just so people know, first of all, Las Vegas was settled by the Mormons. Period. There would be no Las Vegas without the Mormons. Much of the Wild West was about Mormons, and they built the first permanent settlement. And they were put there basically as a stop in between California and Utah because there wasn't a whole lot, there for people that were heading another direction. And they were kind of trying to make it profitable, which I
Yeah.
mean, whatever, that makes sense. But they couldn't grow anything there, and they quickly found out it was pretty uninhabitable, and they abandoned it, and they did not come back for a few more years. But then other people had started moving in, like the mob. The
Yeah.
mob started doing quite a few things, and through Mayhew, this is Bob Mayhew. He was an undercover agent, and he was well known to the FBI, CIA. In fact, he was a big part of Mission Impossible. They based his life on Mission Impossible.
Right.
And this guy is an integral part of the Mormon mafia, but he's the one guy that's not a Mormon.
Right.
And they kind of want to get rid of him. And
Yeah.
Bill Gay does just that eventually. He gets rid of him, and they corporatize Vegas. This is how they get rid of him, is instead of getting rid of him, like bumping him off or whatever, because that would have been super messy at that time. What they did instead is they started working with bankers, and they started working with this guy, E. Perry Thomas. And he is called the Quiet Kingmaker of Las Vegas. And here's his photo. And E. Perry Thomas was also a Mormon. He was a very prevalent Mormon. And speaking of the mob, he ends up opening this bank and taps the Teamsters pensions. He taps the Teamsters pensions to back these loans for these corporate people to buy all these hotels that didn't have the money.
It's interesting that the bank looks like a Roman or Greek temple.
So strange. So strange. Yeah, I don't know about that building. And so often we're going to see that with buildings, like this. But E. Perry Thomas, funny enough, like I said, he's a Mormon, he's a banker, but guess what else he used to do? He was in the CIA. He's a paratrooper during World War II. So all of these people go back to the same thing. And why does it matter? Right? Because we get back to this whole IBM, corporatization, kick the mob out, bring the Mormons in, corporatize everything. And with Hughes's death, they were able to actually put all of this information early on into computerization. And the church was able to do that. And they did it under the guise when they were back in Germany, of helping the Germans prove that they were not marrying a Jewess. They would go back three levels, 3 generations, and say, hey, this, you would hang it on your wall if you wanted to date. But so we've got all this CIA infiltration everywhere. This is Project Isorion that they say was just them trying to get this Russian submarine up from the bottom of the ocean. Okay. That's the story. But also the story with Azores. I mean, if this is kind of like an example of what they were trying to do to yank it up with drilling. But this was happening like at the same time as Zapata oil is in the same area, and they're going after Castro, and it's just all just a CIA front. So I often postulate, that this is what this was really about, which is why I bring up Casey. Atlantis is around the Azores Island. They say, they quote unquote, that many people believe this is where Atlantis was. So he who has the keys, right, makes the rules because he's the king. What did they find? What did they find at this point with all of this that I've showed you, right? The Mormon church has now got something from Howard Hughes because he dies. They've got this IBM connection. And to this day, their top 10 investments are very interesting. The top number 1 being Microsoft.
Yes.
So, I mean, they are the second largest landowner, only second to Gates. And they work with Gates. Like, what the hell's happening here? And they also were against Black people being a part of their church until 1978, when the pressure got so heavy on them that they finally gave in, basically, and said, okay, yeah, I guess so. You can come too, whatever, and let the Black man in. But before that, they would even say the Black man can only go to heaven as a slave to the white man. And that was period. Like, they did not get the proper, the priesthood. They couldn't advance like that. And so I find it interesting when we look at all of that together with some other things that I'm going to show you, and the different weird connections with Howard Hughes and possibly time travel, which is something
Mm,
we've kind of discussed before.
yeah.
This is all in Utah. This is all, I thought you might get a kick out of some of these different things in Utah. Look at the tiny
Wow.
people
Yeah.
and look at these people,
Mm,
right? When we're speaking of the Anunnaki, I
mm,
mean, they were talking about some of these people back in the CIA looking like bugs. Do you remember
mm.
that?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, look at the antennas on the side of this guy's head.
Mm, yeah.
And you've got them everywhere.
Insectoids, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, look at these. Like, are they
Mm,
horns or is this an
yeah.
antenna? You know, these are all over in Utah. Look at this. So, what does Utah have? You know, they I think they have a key to a true mystery here, honestly. And I think they showed people their cards that they're not fooling anymore.
Mm,
These you know these are part of witchcraft sigils. Like, come on, this is calling something down. This is a
mm,
calling down. You know, maybe this isn't witchcraft per se for them because these are native people, but we see the same thing over and over again when we're talking about spirits, you know. And Utah has a very strange landmarks. This is one of the biggest copper mines in the world. It is located here, but it is owned by the crown, and it is Kennecott Copper Mine. You can see it from space. It's an open pit mine. My husband works there.
does he
Um,
really?
he does, and he gets paid by the crown. That's why I know that. Mm-hmm. Rio Tinto. And so when we're looking at this kind of stuff, like this is an area deeply rich in these materials that are very sought after with, oh, that's me out in sought after out in these weird alien cultures, right? Copper is one, gold's
Mm,
another. All of the gold you get from Tiffany's comes from that copper mine
does
as
it really?
well. Yes, this is me to show how large this is. I was in a magazine for, I was like painted, body painted, but this is to show the salt. This is the salt flats. We have all this strange terrain in Utah. They have huge salt flats, and the salt flats there, the salt is only next to um the Dead Sea. This
Yeah.
is again the salt flats, but this
Yeah.
salt is the most similar to the Dead Sea salt, and there's actually no other salt in the world exactly like it. None, not even the Dead Sea. It's only similar. And we see these strange, you know, areas and different things. Like look at some of these mountains when
Mm,
we talk about Tartaria. Look at the archways. Look at the naturally
yeah.
formed, like, are these portals? Then we have these mountains that are, it's so
Mm,
different, right? We have
hmm.
the desert on one side, we have mountains on the other. We have Skinwalker Ranch. This is an old picture of Skinwalker Ranch. And guess who owns Skinwalker Ranch now? And you'll get shot if you go out there. A Mormon. Mormon. Always a Mormon.
That's
So
incredible.
look at these archways. Doesn't that look like it could be receiving and shooting it out the side? Like look at how it looks, right?
Yeah.
Like it could come through here and out there.
Mm,
And I'm not saying, you know, these things can't be made, but it's super interesting. There's all these tunnels. This
mm.
is one of the tunnels, the entrances that Ted Bundy used to get around. FYI, people. Ted
Right.
Bundy Ted Bundy was a Mormon. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. So how
Yeah.
old do they claim those tunnels are, and who put them there? Is there a
Oh,
narrative for that?
right, right. Why the hell are they there? And we don't know. And of course, you know, we're on a grid system in Salt Lake City. It's a perfectly perfect grid system. I
Mm,
will tell you, you can it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can count it right up to the mountain. It's so easy to find your way in Salt Lake City and
mm,
in Ogden. They're both the two of the oldest settled cities. Both had these tunnels. They dare say always, oh well, the mob was here, or they were
yeah.
trying, you know, because Capone was here. He did run these tunnels in Ogden anyway, but also they were already there. I just think
Yeah.
they were running what was there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's for
Yeah.
bootlegging. Okay, that's not why they were created. Let's get real. The
No.
church uses them. The church admits to it. The church admits they use the underground tunnels to chauffeur people in and out of the temple. And they are guarded by the CIA of the church, like not real CIA. Well, they might be, but it's the church men, right?
Mm.
And it's underneath this. I have a picture. It's like a rotunda. And it's very interesting. Also, they always go to the Mason temple,
Yeah.
which is always right next to a cemetery,
Yeah.
oddly enough. It also is right near Planned Parenthood on the grid. I'm sure that wasn't there back in the day, but who even knows? And we see all this stuff in Utah that is strange anomalies. Like this is the spiral jetty, and somebody made this. But what this is, if anybody knows anything about like sigil magic, okay, this is a great big calling down. This is gigantic. This is bringing power inward, right, to the land. It's not going the opposite way. So it's not pulling it out, it's bringing it down,
Yeah.
right? And so, and then we've got all these buildings, these rocks that look like melted buildings. Look at
Yes, they
these
do. That
rocks.
really does look melted, doesn't it?
Hold on
Oh
one second.
yes,
Goblin Valley.
mm,
Yeah. Let me show. Oh, I thought I had more of those. Let me see if I do. Well, this is Devil's Slide. They call
yeah,
this
that's
Devil's Slide.
and it's a silly story behind that, isn't there?
Oh,
That was actually formed by someone sliding down it, wasn't it, or
exact.
something?
It's
Yeah,
it's like a mudslide. It was
yeah,
formed. This thing is huge, man. If you saw the Devil's Slide with I think there might be a person in that last black and white. Okay, look down here. These are like trains and buildings.
yeah.
This is how big this thing is. Okay, so when we're talking about all of this stuff here in Utah,
And of
look
course,
at
it's a
this.
natural formation, isn't it? Apparently,
Supposedly, right? And look at this little tiny guy inside this strange
yeah,
looking. This looks like an Ouroboros with a snake head. I'm sorry. Then
yeah.
this is strange. It's full of sand. This is out in the desert. And we know oftentimes these people to communicate will go where? To the deserts.
Mm.
We've got these strange things. Like it doesn't even look like a real rock, you
And
know?
my guess is they went out to the desert because it wasn't desert when to start with. So when all of these things were actually built and there were civilizations living there, it wasn't a desert.
Probably not. And look at the perfect cube of this. I took a picture of
Mm,
this screenshot because of this cube, right? And we see these all over Salt Lake City now. They've got like just cubes all over, sitting
mm,
just like this rock, but they're like now artist renditions. Very strange, very strange.
mm.
And I even took one of my kids' graduation photos by one because I didn't know what it was then, but so weird. I mean, they're kind of putting it right in your face with
Yeah.
all not the rocks, but with everything else.
Mm,
This is a picture of Goblin Valley. Look at what they named it, Goblin Valley.
mm.
Uh-huh. Okay, whatever. There's a lot of weird Tartaria stuff in Utah, and John Levi talks about this all the time about Utah. And so, he talks about the actual LDS temple probably being a Tartaria building. It's got like 4 more levels underground,
Oh, it's
you know.
huge, isn't it? It's absolutely
Yeah.
huge.
But right now they're redoing it, and they're redoing it to look exactly like the Vatican.
Hmm.
The layout is now a what? A keyhole. Oh,
Right.
you mean like the Onassis Foundation's keyhole design, or do you mean like the Vatican's? Oh, wait, what are they telling us about the
Mm,
keys here,
yeah.
right? These keys. And when I talk about this, people get kind of weirded out, but like, look at this. Look at not this. There is a sigil that Joseph Smith himself had for a calling down. Here it is for a calling down, whoop,
Mm,
down to this seal. Okay, Solomonic magic. See how it looks just like the spiral jetty.
yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
there's nothing new under the sun. I
No,
mean,
there really isn't, is there?
no, we're talking about men who, and I quote, said, Joseph Smith talked about Quakers living on the moon, which sounds batshit crazy, and giants, which sounds insane until you know some things, right? Till you read some Rosicrucian stuff where Brigham Young said people also lived on the sun. Well, that's very interesting. This isn't as batshit crazy as it sounds if you know some of the mystery school teachings.
Yeah.
So
People need to
no,
look into the Rosicrucians. I mean, that's
Absolutely they
Yeah.
do. Absolutely
Yeah,
they
even
do.
if it's not reading, but just jump on YouTube and have a look into them, because it's, you don't come across them very often.
No, no.
People don't, it's not
And
something you hear about these days, is it?
well, and here's the thing. They want to tell us that Columbus was here first and da 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 da. And here's the thing about that. If you look at the people from Lands O Meadows, I don't know if you know about Lands O Meadows. Do you know
No.
about this area? So they have a whole civilization that was established well before Columbus was ever anywhere, and they're Vikings. And what
Yes,
would they
yes.
have brought with them? Their stuff that they worshipped, right? But
Yeah.
also they interbred with another Native American colony, which was also pushed by the LDS people. This is going to become important. I'm telling you, like they mated with what is the predecessors of the Micmacs, okay? But the Micmacs are what is left, and that is a part of my heritage, okay? Which they like to be called Mi'kmaqs now, okay? So when you speak about these people that knew something, they always start to do this. You'll see them mate with the native people and not black people, just Native Americans, because they were different for, and they would say, we have to, they said this, it's a bad quote. We have to buy up all their children to make them more white and delightsome because
Yeah.
they are our brothers. Okay. I
Mm,
didn't say this. This is old prophet stuff, but
mm,
they hated the black. The black
mm.
people, no. They said better to run your knife through a man if he was black and he got caught with your wife at all. Better to run your knife through both of them than let them live. So we get into all this obfuscation of these teachings that are absolutely going back to Babylonian times,
Mm.
110%. Like the more I learn, the more I'm just blown away with it. You know, it's stuff that we just don't fully understand,
Mm.
obviously, but they know about power in the blood. And
Mm.
you know, the RH factor is huge. We know this sigil is Joseph Smith's from straight out of a witchcraft book. PS
Yeah.
people don't get that, you know. But when we're talking about all of these different things and the RH and the people behind it, and I bring up the Mormons, why do I bring up the Mormons? Well, there's this quote, and I found it when I was studying about the Nazis. Okay. And I cannot like vet it. I don't, but it's been circulated throughout the Mormons. Okay.
Yeah.
That the chancellor himself said, the Mormon is the greatest Ubermensch because he does not mix his blood. Sounds like something he'd say.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that underneath the prophet of that day, that prophet went there, the other religions were harshly prosecuted and just come against in that time frame when the chancellor had taken things over because of the fact that he hated religion, right? This is the quote. He thought we were the most beautiful Aryans who kept our blood pure. This is true since most of us retain our precious Nordic bloodlines, our blonde hair, our blue eyes, our pale skin, our Nordic features, despite the demise of the white race in the West. And this is the actual quote. The Mormon is the highest of the Ubermensch, for their religion is against miscegenation. I can't ever say that word. If I could make Europe a continent full of Mormons, I most certainly would. Adolf Hitler.
Right.
So when we're talking about how they align, it is absolutely like aligned with the same type of thoughts, okay?
Mm.
Against race breeding. Okay, that's all. Like that
Yeah.
part. But also you'll find that underneath the guise of the Rotary Club and the YAF, there are a lot of ties with the Nazis and the Mormon Church. In fact, this article was ran in Utah about Mormonism in the New Germany, and they were not prosecuted. And they also hung other like signs up for their particular church like services that said no Jews allowed, while other Christian sects such as Jehovah's Witnesses were being exterminated along with the Jews. The Mormon Church, with its Aryan theology, continued and enjoyed full participation with the Nazi Third Reich under this prophet and under the one before it, Heber J. Grant. But to understand this all with George Albert Smith, relative of Joseph, okay, he is hugely tall and he looks very strange when he's young. I hope I had a
He looks
picture.
strange there.
He's a very strange looking person. I don't know that I put it in here because somebody got after me for making fun, and I wasn't making fun. I was pointing out things, you know. But he was a very strange looking man, and he was part of the club. He was a Rotarian. He had also graduated and he was part of a secret society, and he was helping fund after the war. He sent aid in disguise, of course, right? Like, we're going to disguise it as for their new converts, because they made the Dutch people send food to the Germans that lost the war. We're talking about the Nazis. We're not talking about the others that needed help much more. Also think about Project Paperclip. I don't know if you know this, but Werner von Braun was in a theological Mormon film specifically for Mormons, only viewable by Mormons, and yet Werner von Braun's in it. Why would that be?
So can we find that anywhere? I mean, is that something that we could find on?
I have a pic. I don't know about the full movie, but I have a photo of it. And so I'll finish this up really quick. This is just the church president before the one I just showed you that looks strange. He actually went there. I had to put this over this because I didn't know if I'd get in trouble. But this is Heber J. Grant at a dinner for the chancellor underneath this big giant swastika flag. I mean, I'm just saying. Also, the presidents of the United States, we're pretty good friends with the presidents of the church, including Heber J. Grant. And we're talking about FDR, Warren G. Harding, Coolidge, all these people that are kind of in the club, right? And we see this so interestingly through this time frame. This guy was straight up a Nazi sympathizer, and he was a huge part of the church. And his quote on it was "Go along to get along." Because that's what we're supposed to do as Mormons. We're supposed to live by the law of their land. So this photo in the Deseret News, which is a Utah newspaper, shows LDS missionaries helping the German Olympic basketball team, and they are doing the hail sign right along with. So I'm just saying there's a whole book about, one guy that did try to stand up to the chancellor, and they did go after him. But interestingly enough, the guy in Germany at this time, over the German ward that I told you, where they would hang up the signs, "No Jews allowed," blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He, interestingly enough, is the guy that I showed you before shaking hands with President Bush. Isn't that fun?
It is. Yeah. With the special handshake.
With the special handshake. Yeah. These people are so in the club that it's just not even funny. I mean, they know about everything. And the reason why I bring up all this stuff is because of one thing for sure. Look, the CIA knows about these other entities. You can call them aliens, you can call them whatever you want, but the CIA knows. And they did not let out all of the records. When they just barely let out the records, they held some back, and it's underneath this guy, last name Joanides. And I don't think they'll ever let that particular part of the paper out, because it would be many, because he is the one that is often talked about, where they say, aliens and blah, 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 blah. So all of this goes to JFK for one specific reason, and that is because he wanted to work with the Russians. I think I have this photo. And after this particular photo was taken, he died 2 weeks later and it was a photo with Werner von Braun. And they were pointing up at space, and I know I have it. I just have to find it.
How did he die?
JFK?
No, you said he died a couple of
2 weeks after this picture is taken with Werner von Braun. JFK is assassinated.
Oh, sorry.
You're
I thought
good.
it was Warner von Braun died too.
Oh, no, 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 no. Many people died as a result of this whole JFK business. But also, after this particular photo was taken where he's pointing up and kind of at space, and I know I have it in here, I just have to find it, but he's pointing up at space, and they both are together,
Mm,
and they are talking about including Russia because of what had just happened with the Cuban Missile Crisis,
yeah.
and they almost blew each other and the whole world, honestly, up, right? Like this was serious. And so after that happened, he said, okay, I think we should work with the Russians so we don't, right here, so we don't get blown
Right.
up. And you have to understand, for people to fully comprehend why that even matters is because all of the paperclip Nazis were brought over here. Okay. And they, not all, but the best and the brightest, some were sent to
Hmm.
Russia, but the Russians were hated by Germany because they were a main reason why they lost the war. And so many viewed this as JFK's a traitor, but Werner von Braun was livid because they hated the Germans, hated the Russians, and
Mm,
he was going to share their most precious secret, which was, I dare say, you can call them aliens, you can call them whatever you want, others, okay, outside realm type stuff, with Russia to work on this project together. And when you get into these paperclip Nazis, you have to understand that they knew a lot about the occult. They were avid occultists, like they were practicing, and they were heads and tails above all of us, okay, with planes and everything. And then you see us slowly get that technology after we inherit these scientists, okay?
yeah.
And what do we know about most of these people? Like Parsons worked for Howard Hughes. Did
Mm,
you know that?
yeah.
Did you know? Yeah, one of the main people for Skunk Works that employed Eugene Thanes Caesar, who probably killed Robert F. Kennedy. I mean, I can't prove that, but most likely was a Mormon. He owned Skunk Works at the time. He was from the Philippines, where they ended up sending the Thane Eugene Caesar until he died. Like, it's very interesting. And
Do
when we
you?
look at all that, it's got to mean something, you know?
I was just going to ask if you know about the book that Warner von Braun wrote about the little boy called Elon who travels to
Yes.
Mars, and I mean that's a
So
bit
crazy.
strange, isn't it?
Well, especially when you read these different books about this lady. I can't remember, her name is Celeste, but I can't remember her last name. Speaking about how Howard Hughes was a time traveler.
Mm,
And so maybe he shared that information with, or it was taken, right?
mm,
With these people. And she talks about how he was manufacturing these portals that were used to be natural portals. Okay. And so when we're talking about this stuff, it just is bananas, because you have to see that it means more than what meets the eye. Like
mm,
it definitely does. And this is
yeah.
a big example of it. And this guy, oh boy, this poor guy, Henry Murray. Okay. So I brought this for you specifically because Henry Murray was Mormon and he is from Utah. Well, he tapped into Tesla stuff, whether Tesla existed or not, regardless. The information that is said to be Tesla's was taken by the CIA, right?
Hmm.
Some of it,
Yeah.
something was taken. Maybe it was a prototype, because I know he didn't take notes. I don't know. I don't know what was happening there, but I do know this. They've really tried to kill off free energy and different things. And Vanover Bush was definitely underneath, Tesla's stuff, whichever way we want to put that. And Bush
Mm.
is attached to that, right? And supposedly, this is all like up in the air. But I do know this man that I just told you about, the Mormon, he invented a prototype and wrote this book, The Sea of Energy in Which the Earth Floats. Okay. He writes this book and he makes this prototype, which ran not just a little bit of energy, it was an extensive amount of energy. Okay. this radiant energy, and it's called the Moray generator, and or the Moray. There was another one, drill, something like that. I can't remember, but it'll come up if you look up Moray generator. And it's patented, and this is the prototype. And he ran this experiment right here where all of these bulbs, okay, high wattage, and it just ran and ran and ran. It never did stop. It never stopped. And he showed that this works. This works. It's from underground. Okay. And he showed this at these exhibits. And then all of a sudden, the guy working with him destroys it. And not only that, this man was shot at. He was said, it was said that he basically was like this horrible guy because he wouldn't sell off his stuff. And he basically told them, no, I'm not selling it off. You can all go to you know where. God gave this to me. God gave this to me. Oh, wow. That's interesting, right? I mean, so he lives out the rest of his life basically just tortured, being shot at. Like he never redoes it. He just leaves it alone and it dies, right? It dies off with him. But his sons, interesting enough, they tried to sort of resurrect it. And then all of a sudden they all joined the military and they're super high up in the military.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they sold it out, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
sold out.
what I'm saying is we see this so freaking often about secrets and the old world, and like you had said and I had said the last time we talked, especially about this technology, like how did they light up all these world's fairs? How did they do all this stuff, right? Well, they knew something we don't know, and they are guarding it
Yeah.
literally
Yeah,
with their
absolutely.
lives.
And everybody, I mean, I wrote about this in my first book in the towards the end, talking about Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla allegedly was run over. There was a hit and run a few days before he died, and then he died in mysterious circumstances. But everybody else that has got anywhere with free energy has died.
Yep.
They've
Yep.
either
Suddenly.
committed suicide, been poisoned in a restaurant, something has happened. And that story repeats itself everywhere.
On and on and on and
Yeah.
on. And now we see all of this stuff. And I know we've been like a trip around the world with different things here, as far as melted buildings, melted rocks, Tesla energy, babies. But all of it is to show people that anything that they give to you, any story that they bring to you, right? History is written by the victors.
Absolutely.
In
Yeah.
any story that they bring to you does not always mean what they say it does. And when we're talking about the genesis of people, or should I break it down? The gene of Isis. Wait, Genesis, gene of Isis. Ha ha ha. They know these things so much further than when they say like the first test tube baby was July 25th, 1978, right? And that they figured out the zinc spark and all this stuff that they understand. Now, remember this about this poor man that gets tortured till the end of his life, about, all these kind of looking like melted buildings and strange things. And also remember about, Henrietta Lacks and her tissue sample that lives on for like forever, forever and ever. I can't say that word. And, we're looking at things that they have only taken a tiny sample from these people. I don't know do you know who I'm talking about, Henrietta?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was not a big sample. And her family is not overly thrilled that this continues on and on and on. So if they can do that with a pap smear sample, what can they do with the dead bodies they probably have? Like,
Yeah.
well, but what is really happening?
Yeah.
And what do they do with our stuff? Like, think about how many women have hysterectomies in this day and age. Think about how many eggs can come from that. Like, we don't know where they go.
No. No, we
Yeah.
don't. No, you're quite right.
Where the hell do they go? And what about men? The sperm can be alive and the testes have kept on ice for quite a little bit of time after somebody dies. Look, this is not an impossibility. This is not an impossibility. And if they know your bloodline, which is where this comes all together with the weirdness of the Mormons and the everything I've told you today, I know it's an ADHD presentation, but here it is, we look at what they were doing and what the chancellor was doing. And we look at the facts that people, 1 in 3 people only have an internal monologue. The rest don't.
Is it 1 in 3? Because I
One in
sort of got
three.
to through things that I'd read and people I've spoken to, I sort of come to the conclusion that it was probably 50-50, but it's 1 in 3, is it? Crikey.
We are the limited if you are one. And I
Mm.
I am one. I definitely have that. We know that they say they've
Mine
they've
doesn't
got the
shut up.
no, ever.
No,
And
no, it
people
keeps
that
me
are
awake.
extremely well, and here's the thing that goes back to, right? Fallen angel technology, what can they do? The people that use fallen angel technology or demon, whatever you want to call it, man, like whatever you think that is, Anunnaki, this story is the same throughout all over.
Mm.
Okay. When we talk about this stuff, we know that they cannot create the people that use it, right? They can only copy, right?
Yeah.
So, those of us that do have a true soul, and I'm not trying to make people afraid because there is a book out there called Every Living Creature. And I like to bring this up when I talk about this stuff because it freaks people out. And I understand that. But I myself know I am from a strange heritage. And when we look at these things, especially with people and prophets, where they are told something, then the first thing they're told to do is either go be promiscuous and have a ton of kids or get a ton of wives and have a ton of kids.
Mm.
Why do you think that is? That's super weird, right? What if something's bestowed upon them at that time? What if something has physically changed about their genetics when they commune in that way? And sometimes I dare say it overtakes them because many of them die horrifically, but their seed usually lives on,
Mm.
not in
Yeah.
every case, but often. And then we see all of these different things like the Basques and the RH Knoll and the RH
Hmm.
Factor and these stories of the Native Americans about indigo children. And it's not just
Yes.
us, it's all these people.
Mm.
And and that's why I think that book, Every Living Creature, is super important because I don't want people to feel like they're doomed or they can't be saved. God came here for every living creature, period. So if you're a God believing person, do not feel oppressed by this conversation. I myself had quite a mental breakdown when I started looking into this and I had 4 episodes with a lady and in the midst of it she said, "I know you're from Utah and I know we're talking about this and you look like a Nephilim." And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, "That's nice." She said, "Your eyes are far apart." And even when I describe the Nephilim, like these different attributes. And I know that I'm not a complete RH factor. I do come from a line of it. But when you speak about it, like they look youthful, their eyes are more wide apart, their nose bridge is smaller, like these different little things,
Mm.
like flatter, not smaller. I would say flatter. The Basque people are a good example. They either have green or blue eyes, they have dark
Yes.
blonde or blonde hair, they have large canines, they're tall. I'm all of those things. Okay. And when we speak about it, yeah, it freaked me out. It freaked my husband out so bad. This is one talk he doesn't listen to of mine because he's redheaded.
Right. Right. So he doesn't want to
So,
know, doesn't want to hear
no,
it.
he doesn't
The
like
Basques,
it.
I mean, there was a horrific sort of, well, they were slaughtered, weren't they? Massacred.
And why is that?
Mm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
they are hiding what they don't want you to know. But now
Mm.
think of this, whatever they don't want you to know, well, that's pretty easy for them to hide because they now own all of the base. All
Mm.
the family DNA stuff
Mm.
is
Yeah.
owned through the Mormon church, I'm sure through the CIA. Don't forget who they made the deal with to get those cards.
Yeah.
That was the CIA and it's declassified. CIA never does anything without their own benefit.
Well, look
Sorry.
at ancestry.com. I mean, that's owned by
Eh,
Blackstone.
But it's poured, but every single piece of information that ancestry.com has came from the parent site, which is familysearch.org,
Yeah.
started and ran by the Mormons, period.
I've been looking into that, ancestry.com and Blackstone and why Blackstone might be interested in having that data. And then you look at research that they're funding into bioweapons that can target
Mhm.
specific people and specific groups of people. You think, right, this now makes perfect
Yes.
sense. You could create a virus that travels the world that only takes out specific people or blood groups, or people from certain ancestral lines. You could target those people specifically, and you can
Well,
see why
and
they'd
you
want to
can
do that.
preserve the people that
Yeah.
you know are this bigger percentage of this rare bloodline, you know.
Mm,
And what I'm saying is literally during 2020,
mm,
I as a nurse saw that thing hit certain people way worse than others. In fact, it wasn't the darkest population, it was the tan middle. It was the Mediterranean, Latin American people that I saw die, like literally death,
mm.
like multiple friends, her husband, her mom, like it was on and on and on. It was so many people. And it was quick and it was strange because the rest of us got the sniffles, right?
So, from what you experienced, the people that did die,
I'm
had
going to
they
stop sharing.
had any medical intervention? Had they taken? I mean, we've got to be careful on YouTube.
Some, yes, we have
So,
to be very careful.
because
Yeah.
I'm sort of
Some
wondering whether
did.
the people that, because there's a part of me that thinks that it was, it wasn't anything specific. It was maybe a flu, or people getting the flu, and then the fact it was the medical intervention that took place,
The
that
cure. Yes, the
the
cure.
cure was
Hmm.
actually what was making people ill.
Well, funny enough about that cure, I will tell you my mom's last name because she married into a family that's Latin. Okay. Her
Hmm.
name is a Latin last name. Okay. And we'll just leave it at that. But she got very ill after the cure, whereas other people I knew didn't. And I have definitely hypothesized because of the Tuskegee experiment and many other
Hmm.
experiments that people can go and see what they did to people, okay? Including Andrea Puharich, which is fascinating. But all of these people are a part of a certain group, and I dare say monetarily wise they were affected differently and maybe given a hot dose. We
Hmm.
know that also, like you said, it could affect different bloodlines differently. And the one thing I will tell you that's very interesting is my mom looks like me, but she's dark. Okay. She's little and she's dark because her father had it Basque. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we know about this stuff and the importance of this stuff, right? Maybe you're right. Maybe they're annihilating certain things
Mm.
because they know that certain people have a combination mix of what they don't want out, right?
Yeah.
But they control it. They control all of these keys, and that's why I always say look at their logos. I don't know what Blackstone's logo is. Look at their old logos before they got popular. See if it isn't a circle with a keyhole,
Mm.
because I'm telling you, every time I go down the rabbit hole on some such thing, there is some weird keyhole, new world order type situation there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, they are continuing this stuff and it's nothing new under the sun. Look, the Jesuits are not new. Um,
No.
the
No.
Mormons are new, but I think that they showed that they are worthy, right? They showed their key. They showed like what do you know? Show me yours, I'll show you mine kind of
Mm.
situation. Because everything changed for the Mormons after Watergate. And Watergate, there was a big fall in Watergate that was taken by a Mormon. And as soon as that happened, because he ran the Mullen Company, and I don't know if you know about Watergate, but the Mullen Company is a huge piece of this puzzle. And his name was Bob Bennett. He was a senator from here. And after that time, when all of that got settled, the church never had another money problem again. In fact, they're one of the richest churches in the world, but they just tightened up their building fund. Don't you worry.
Right. Oh, okay.
But all Mormons I won't say all Mormons that are pioneer heritage Mormons, okay, like me, we look the same. And I don't think I look like a lot of people in the world. Like I've traveled, I've seen a lot of places, and I have a different look. My children look exactly like me. My family looks a lot like me, other than my mom's short and has a nicer tan. But all of these things are interesting when we go back to Kingston's and the divine right to rule
Mhm.
and their seed. They literally say Joseph Smith said he was part of that lineage. And if we get into Fritz Springmeier's book, and I know people are going to say that's garbage, it's, woo woo, whatever. Every single one of these families that I've looked at, it's it's a lot. And they're
Mhm.
related to everyone. Like I am related to like all the presidents and I'm related to all these people because if you're related to one, you're related to all of them.
Yes, yes, they're all related. Yeah.
And so they're obviously preserving something. Like,
Mm,
I mean, Joseph Smith was John D. Rockefeller's heritage. Like,
mhm.
come on. This is an elite family. And when we get into the Society of Cincinnati, and I don't know, have you done any research on that?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, go down that rabbit hole. That's a fun one. You want to talk about bloodlines? Oh, that's only passed through lineage. The Society of the Cincinnati was the beginning.
Right.
George Washington was in the Society of Cincinnati. And my friend JJ Vance talks about this a lot. And he discusses how this is handed down from father to son. And it only can go, if it goes to a girl, it's done. You might be interested that, Jack Black Bouvier was
Yeah.
double Society of the Cincinnati. So all these very interesting people, if you go back, they're always a part of it. It's very strange. And I do postulate that, this is the new world, the brave new world, and that they populated it with who the hell they wanted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Brave New World. Yeah. Huxley was
Because
right.
yeah, why would you come here as a freaking you're almost a king? They
Mm,
begged him. I have a letter in like these because the Mormons go crazy for genealogy. That one grandpa of mine where they demanded he come back to Great Britain to because they were out of heirs at some point. And he was like next, not the next, but the next one. And he said, no, I'm not going to. So we get into that story. We get into the weird story of Marie Antoinette's kid. We get into these weird stories all over the place. Like, did she hide him here? Like, what happened with
mm,
that? These kind of strange rabbit holes. And you wonder what is really true.
yeah. And will we ever find out?
I mean, I know this. I've known a lot lesser Mormons than me, like as far lesser problems that they've committed against the church, like smaller indiscretions. Like I interviewed these people that are true blue Mormons. They really believe in it still to this day. And they have banned them worldwide from the church because of some little discrepancy. I mean, it wasn't little, it ruined their life, but it was like a back and forth child abuse situation. They literally by gunpoint made them leave the church. I am still a member of the church. I live in Utah. I've been saying, come at me, bro, for 2 full years because I figured it'd be easier to get kicked out
Yeah.
than to have to go through this whole hullabaloo about like you gotta get a signed affidavit and blah blah blah. And I've been rebaptized and everything, into a totally different situation, renounced everything. And I talk a lot of shit. Like, really, come on. They should have come after me. I'm a
Mm.
blasphemer. I'm a blasphemer going to hell apostate. And to them, right? But for me, I'm just right here and there's church across the street. Never been delivered a letter. I'm like, do it. I'll be so happy. I'm gonna have somebody come fake they're my husband with their Google glasses, and we're gonna go to that because I'm like that. Maybe that's why they don't do it. But I'm like, come on, yeah, come at me, bro. Like, I don't care, you know.
People often
But
say
I'm,
that's going to happen with the Freemasons with me, that one day there'll be a knock on the door, or as some
oh
people say,
man,
they won't be knocking. Anyway, I'm
yeah,
going to have
yeah.
to end it
You're good.
here.
You're good.
Thank you. I think we'll have to do a part two,
Yeah,
at
I'm
least a
always
part two.
down for chats with you. I'm always available. I have the
Thank
most
you.
fun talking to you.
Thank you.
So,
No, I really enjoyed it, and it's brilliant to speak to somebody that is researching the same kind of things as me. I mean, obviously, I don't, I don't study the church as much, but we're looking at very similar information. So it's
Yes.
really nice to chat with you. I really appreciate you.
It feels nice to be validated in our research because
Yes.
I mean, you can't talk. You go start up a conversation with somebody at, the bus stop about cabbage babies.
Mm,
You're going to get locked up.
yeah. Yeah. Just like they did
So,
last time.
yeah.
Well,
Oh,
thank
well.
you. Thank you, Heidi. I
Yes, of
really
course.
appreciate you. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Absolutely. And for those that don't know, please check me out. I'm the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served, unfilteredrisepodcast.com if you hate pod chasers. But I will tell you, if you're on YouTube, I am only there maybe once a week. I am far more on Spotify almost every other day. So
If you could you send me in one sort of message all your
absolutely.
links, and
Oh,
then I'll
of
put them in the
course.
description. So anybody who didn't
Absolutely.
catch that, yeah, they can then
I would
click on
love
the links
to.
in the description. That would be brilliant.
Wonderful. Thank
Well,
you so much for this.
thank you. It was lovely chatting to you, and
Awesome.
I shall speak to you again soon.
Yes. Bye.
Take care, Heidi. Bye for now.